The following program contains language considered adult in nature. You may wish to use discretion when watching with younger viewers.
Funding for this program was provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation. Generations of families and friends who feel passionate about the programs they watch on Iowa Public Television.
October 2011 marked the 10th anniversary of Operation Enduring Freedom. Of the more than 90,000 troops currently serving in Afghanistan, nearly half are National Guard and Reserve soldiers. Iowans were among the first to answer the call.
Oh, open fire! Two back!
I was still pretty sure we were going to make it throughout all of it, especially when the snipers started happening. I was like, oh man, how are we going to get out of here?
I'm moving up to the compound.
And for some reason, his face still haunts me. To this day, I still see the faces.
Success? Sure, we had success. I think it goes back to what does that success look like? I think we got to determine as a people and a nation of what that is.
After record deployments, the troops reflect on their experiences and tally the emotional toll. As Iowa soldiers remember Afghanistan. On September 11, 2001, America's worst nightmare became a reality. Terrorists attacked sites in New York City, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C.
And the people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
The attacks sparked a 10-year battle which came to be known as the War on Terror. Led by full-time U.S. military soldiers, a coalition of international forces assumed primary responsibility for engaging a largely unseen enemy. The coalition was supported by National Guard and Reserve units from every state in the Union, including Iowa, which, in July of 2010, mobilized more than 3,000 soldiers who served in the largest single deployment of the state's troops since World War II. Serving in Operation Enduring Freedom, they've helped root out al-Qaeda forces and the Taliban soldiers who protect them. Most Iowa troops were stationed in the eastern part of Afghanistan, not far from the border with Pakistan. Colonel Ben Carell from Strawberry Point, a veteran of several deployments in the War on Terror, commanded more than 2,800 Iowa National Guard soldiers. Carell had two major objectives. First and foremost, to find and disable enemy forces. And secondarily, but no less important, to work with the local government to help Afghani officials take control of their country.
I'm building relationships with these governors to really help them understand what it is that I can do for them to help, number one, secure their people, number two, help accomplish their goals and objectives for the future of their province and their people. And that's tough stuff because it isn't what you typically see people in a military uniform being good at. But I'll tell you that we're very good at it.
Des Moines Register reporter Tony Lays was embedded with the Iowa troops for more than 2 weeks.
I wasn't expecting it to be all out and out warfare every minute, and it wasn't, because that's not the way things are there. I've done some other foreign travel where you actually get to sit and talk to people and sit in their homes. In this situation, it's very hard to have a natural conversation with the people, and I think that's true of the soldiers too.
Staff Sergeant Jay Winkowski of Belle Plaine was among the Iowa soldiers who relieved National Guard units from Vermont.
I felt like I was born to do this, and that didn't resonate fully with me until I was an actual combat leader on the ground in Afghanistan.
When the departing guardsmen handed off duties to the Iowa troops in December of 2010, they gave Winkowski a few rules for staying alive. Never call for a medical evacuation helicopter unless the injury is serious. Stay and fight as long as you can. Never venture into the side valleys. Always stay on the hard surface roads, and never climb the mountains. Winkowski and the other members of Iowa's Task Force Red Bulls abided by the first two guidelines, but discarded the rest, choosing instead to confront the enemy in the mountains and valleys. Within a month, Winkowski and other members of the task force abandoned the security of their armored vehicles to push the enemy back on foot.
Hey, just keep opportunity fire.
And that was maybe the first time the enemy saw us completely away from our vehicles nowhere in sight, just off by ourselves. And instead of running back to our vehicles, we ran towards the enemy. And my soldiers performed flawlessly. And the reports came back later on that night that we had inflicted casualties on the enemy, that they had retreated with their casualties, and that was it.
Morgan, over on me.
Confidence in the capabilities of his fellow soldiers notwithstanding, as the battles wore on, Winkowski began to wonder privately if he would return home alive.
I wrote a letter to my daughter just so that she could have something to remember me by. You know, every time we went on a really hairy mission that I knew I was going to see, we were going to get into a fight, I knew I was going to see direct combat. You know, I'd call my wife, you know, just talk to her a little bit, hear her voice, have to put our daughter on the phone so I could hear her voice, have her hear Daddy's voice. And I think my wife really, I think she knew what was going on.
Over the next 3 months, coalition forces pushed deeper into Taliban territory.
When we've talked to elders around here, nobody's willing to sign any documents, or nobody really wants to be seen talking to us because they're afraid of what the Taliban will do to them.
Where would they be?
The Taliban are about 1 kilometer, 800 meters to the west of us.
It is a chess match, and it's, you know, there's people that think the enemy is pretty simplistic, and that's not the case at all. These forces that we're fighting, they have purpose, they have agenda. You know, their motivation may be a little bit different than what we think it is too, because I don't think that in most cases you're going to find you know, from a strategic perspective, what it is that they're focused on. It's not world dominance. It's not to expand for religious reasons. It's really to line their pockets, and it's more what I would say criminal, you know, a mafia type enterprise.
While some missions included hostile confrontations with the enemy, other patrols proved to be more routine. And for Iowa journalist Tony Lays, that was almost worse.
It's so random when something's going to happen. It's not so much like a set battle like World War II would have been. It's you're driving down a road and you've been down this road a bunch of times before, and everything's been fine, but one of these days something might blow up, and you don't know when that's going to be. Younger Afghan men would come up and talk or shake hands with people on the patrol when we were actually in the village. And afterward, I was talking to the guys and said, do you think some of those are Taliban? Oh, yeah, absolutely they are. And it's like a macho thing for them to go up and shake an American soldier's hand. And that's a very eerie feeling.
Operation Enduring Freedom entailed more than simply pushing out the enemy and restoring order. A less confrontational, but no less formidable battle was waged for the hearts and minds of the Afghan people. After a decade of fighting, Afghanistan's already dilapidated infrastructure was heavily damaged. U.S. forces attempted to repair and improve key buildings like hospitals and schools. A strategic decision to rely on local labor and materials infused cash into the local economy.
whoever the project manager is hires like 10 people, and they do the work, and then the money goes directly back into the community. That's what their biggest complaint is, especially out here, because they're just farmers. You know, we need the money, we need the to stimulate the economy to stop guys from being insurgents.
Immediate benefits of the tactic were undeniable. Long-term results, however, are subject to debate.
Well, when we pulled up, it was just a rundown school, fairly significant, probably about as big as a typical American elementary school. And it was just, most of the windows were broken, the concrete was just completely falling apart, fixtures were missing, it was just a total wreck. And I thought, wow, this place has got to be 40, 50 years old. And come to learn that school had been built in 2004 with taxpayer dollars. And they used local materials and local workers, which in theory is a good idea to put people to work and teach them how to do it. In practice, this thing was completely falling apart. And to talk to the soldiers, they said they'd seen that a lot.
In addition to combat troops, Iowa forces also included members of an agribusiness development team, or ADT, whose mission was to improve the lives of local farmers. Virtually all of the men and women serving in these specialized farmer-soldier units volunteered for the assignment. Colonel Craig Bargfried of Ankeny, who has since been promoted to general, commanded Iowa's ADT.
They know how to farm pretty well, and as long as they could get water to the farm ground, they could grow some pretty awesome crops. The real need was at that provincial and district level, and helping those officials build their capacity and their ability and to plan projects to secure funding that they needed.
65 members of Iowa's ADT were stationed in the Kunar province, about 2 miles from the Pakistani border. Through coordinated efforts with local government officials, the soldiers built demonstration farms and vaccinated thousands of animals. Dr. Loren Adams of New Liberty sold his veterinary practice prior to his deployment. His goal was to connect local veterinarians with impoverished farmers unaccustomed to fundamental animal health services.
Everything I did, I wanted to bring them together with their clients, feeling that the people are so poor, I wanted them, they don't even know what the veterinarians can offer.
Each time Adams or any other member of the ADT stepped outside the wire, a combat mission, complete with security detail, was planned and executed. It quickly became apparent he would get more accomplished by hiring some of Kunar Province's 50 veterinarians. Under Adams' supervision, local vets vaccinated more than 20,000 animals. Members of Iowa's agribusiness development team also taught Afghan women basic veterinary practices and helped them develop cottage industries like soap making and carpet weaving. Task Force Hawkeye, as the group was officially known, worked with local officials to develop a sewing and tailoring program. Those who completed the course were given sewing machines and supplies to make a few projects. During off-duty hours, Iowa soldiers were confined inside the wire, where some tried to balance the rigors of war with the sheer boredom of a long deployment.
I'm 49 years old right now. I've noticed my abdominal muscles shrinking since I've been riding this, so I need to get exercise.
To break up the monotony, some of the soldiers played musical instruments. Others helped the Afghan National Army repair vehicles. You want to take one of these guys with you? Or joined Afghan locals for an impromptu game of cricket.
Try putting it outside.
And still others maintained the old Army tradition of adopting stray dogs.
My mom and dad send me flea collars and flea powder and then puppy treats. There are early warning devices. They see and hear what we don't.
In March of 2011, members of Task Force Red Bulls participated in the largest air assault in Iowa National Guard history, Operation Bullwhip. Prior to the strike, U.S. forces dropped leaflets warning civilians to stay in their homes, a message the Afghanis took to heart. Iowa soldiers with Task Force Red Bulls captured more than 10 insurgents and recovered 15 hidden stockpiles of weapons without firing a single shot. The operation culminated in a large meeting known as a Peace Shura, in which Afghan authorities introduced newly appointed leadership. Karel believes the Taliban were among those in attendance.
I'm pretty confident that they were in there, but there's nothing to say, that that's who they were. But I think that is the key to what we're doing. We're not going to kill them all. It's just not feasible. It's not possible. But slowly, they've got to understand that, we're not as bad as what the propaganda says that we are either, and we're not there to be occupiers. That's a misconception as well.
In May of 2011, Iowa forces received reports that the small town of Doab was being overrun by hundreds of Taliban fighters. Local police had called for several days asking for help, but reconnaissance video failed to reveal any hostilities in the area. Nevertheless, Colonel Karel decided to send a small force to investigate. As part of the patrol sent to assess the situation, Sergeant Winkowski prepared for the worst and instructed those in his squad to assume anyone they encountered was an insurgent.
And so I filled my pockets with grenades. I filled my soldiers' pockets with grenades. And I told them, every single person in that district center is to be treated as a hostile, unless they are obviously a civilian. Like, i.e. a small 7-year-old child or a woman fully dressed with a basket of fruit or something like that.
Immediately after insertion, the small force was attacked and pinned down for several hours.
City security right there! Bravo, over here! Open fire! 2 back!
I was still pretty sure we were going to make it throughout all of it, especially when the snipers started happening. I was like, oh man, how are we going to get out of here?
About 4 hours after we first made contact, we could pick up the traffic through collection sources that they were on their radios and their cell phones saying, hey everybody, we got them pinned down and it's time for a turkey shoot.
Hey, we need to get back. Move back. We got everybody? We got everybody? Yeah, we got everybody. Ready?
Fearing his troops were about to be overrun, Karel sent in attack helicopters, a C-130 gunship, and called for close-range airstrikes from fighter jets. He also ordered reinforcements to the scene. When the dust settled from the 8-hour battle, coalition forces had killed 300 enemy fighters without suffering a single casualty. Amidst the daily fight for command and control, a simultaneous battle was waged for Afghan self-sufficiency. Initially, U.S. forces had little faith in the Afghan National Army. But as the Iowa soldiers began to place their faith in their local counterparts, they discovered many of their preconceptions were unfounded.
When we first got in country, we could immediately tell that there was this friction between the Afghan National Army soldiers and U.S. soldiers. And we really got that from the people we replaced. They said, don't trust the ANA. We started to say, hey, we'll put that blind trust in them and just see what happens, see where it takes us. And what it ended up happening was that trust started reciprocating back to us in the form of they were on time, they had the right stuff. And it went from being on time to they were early. They were waiting on us.
Several months into the deployment, Afghani citizens were asked for their impressions of U.S. troops, and they too noted a change in some of their perceptions of Americans.
Their reply was, we thought Americans were dishonest. We thought you were liars and cheaters. We thought you came to our country to rob our country of various things. After working with you, we have totally changed our opinion. You are honest, hardworking people. You say what you mean, and you follow through on promises.
Inside the wire, some soldiers experienced issues rivaling those endured outside the wire. Sergeant Heather Eberly of Altoona served as a medic with the Iowa ADT. Working primarily in the agricultural areas of Cooner Province, she rarely treated soldiers wounded in combat. But early one morning, that all changed.
Once they started coming in, it didn't seem like it was ever going to stop. And it was probably one of the saddest days I've ever seen. To this day, I still see the faces. There's one young man that, he's from Arizona, 20 years old. He came in with the first wave at 4 a.m. and he ended up dying in transit. He was basically just living on adrenaline. I think a lot of it has to do with he was still speaking, and for some reason, his face still haunts me.
In addition to emotional stress, Eberly also faced physical danger. The notion of being safe inside the wire proved to be an illusion, as the remote base was attacked sporadically with rocket-propelled grenades, or RPGs. One assault ignited fuel in a supply depot and destroyed several vehicles. Rather than seek shelter, Eberly reacted with what she characterizes as a typical Iowa response.
To this day, we joke about it because it's kind of like a true Iowan. When the tornado siren goes off, what does every Iowan do? They go outside to see the storm. Same thing for incoming.
1 month prior to returning home, Eberly was riding in a convoy ambushed by Taliban forces when her vehicle was struck by an RPG.
When we got to Jalalabad, we looked at the truck and I went, oh shit. I mean, you know, there's a big old hole in the side of our truck and there's bullet holes all over our truck.
In addition to personal safety issues, Eberly also was concerned about alarming family members back home. Initially, she decided against keeping anything secret from her husband, Josh, who also serves in the Iowa National Guard. But with each passing day, she felt a greater need to insulate her loved ones from the details.
When I came home, I said, okay, and I showed him pictures. This is what I was dealing with. And he's like, wow, you didn't tell me this stuff. I said, well, no, I didn't, but I couldn't because I knew you'd worry. And I did the same thing for my parents as well.
Finally, in July of 2011, the troops began returning to Iowa. In emotional and sometimes bittersweet ceremonies, most of the soldiers were reunited with loved ones.
I get the message, Mary.
Commander, take charge of your unit and dismiss them.
Shortly after returning home, many of the soldiers confronted different enemies. Nationally, the unemployment rate for veterans of conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan exceeds 11%, more than 2 points higher than federal government figures. And a military survey of Iowa soldiers returning from Afghanistan in 2011 revealed 20% did not have jobs waiting for them. Acclimating to civilian life apart from the military routine may also pose a challenge. Many soldiers report sleep disturbances, difficulty with anger, and increased attention to threats, both real and perceived. Most veterans cope with the emotional distress effectively, but some develop post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Iowa National Guard officials say virtually everyone returning from a combat zone copes with some degree of emotional distress.
My husband, if you asked him, he'd say yes, she's got PTSD. Myself, I'm an anxious person anyway, so I think, yeah, maybe a little residual PTSD. But I'm dealing with it, and I think I'm dealing with it in a pretty healthy way.
Heather and Josh Eberly were married just before she left for Afghanistan. Realizing the stress her deployment placed on both of them, the couple agreed to seek counseling from Military OneSource, a free service provided by the Department of Defense.
If you care for someone, you'll stay through that anger and you'll try to work through it. Right now, we're going to see a marriage counselor, make sure our bond of our marriage bond is not broken, bent, is tied in as a knot, and it'll stay there.
When I first came back from Iraq, I guess I really, for the first time, really experienced PTSD. I became what I would refer to as being hyper alert, meaning that I was constantly waking up, constantly staying awake, having trouble falling back asleep because I thought someone was in my house or something was going on to where I needed to be up. I think it's a little easier the second time around. I still feel like I've got to have a weapon on me. It's to a lesser extent than it was in Iraq, but I think it's a good idea to get back into, counseling and going through that same type of things that made things better the first time around.
Of the 2,800 Iowa soldiers who served in Afghanistan under Colonel Carell, 175 were seriously injured and 4 were killed. And after returning to Camp Dodge in Johnston, the commanding officer reflected on the deployment.
Success? Sure, we had success. I think it goes back to what does that success look like? What is the end game? When does the green light come on for us to say we've met success and we're going to move out? Otherwise, we continue to dump resources into this of blood and treasure with I'm not sure what the outcome is. I guess that's for a higher power to decide of, when that success is fully done, that we can actually back out of there. I think we got to determine as a people and a nation of what that is, and I'm not sure that we've defined that clearly yet.
Funding for this program was provided by Friends, the Iowa Public Television Foundation. Generations of families and friends who feel passionate about the programs they watch on Iowa Public Television.